All set?
Recording in progress.
Are we in screen share? There we go. All right. We're all set? Okay. Welcome to the November 16th Swampscott Select Board meeting. Before we get started, if you will all join us in a pledge of allegiance.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Before we dive into our agenda, we are going to do public comment. Just a reminder to people that public comment is an opportunity for members of the public to express their opinions on items both on and not on the official agenda. Public comment is not intended to be a discussion, debate, or dialogue between or among the select board and residents. And their additional guidelines are: before sharing your comments, residents should state their names, addresses, and if known, voting precinct. Each speaker will be limited to speaking for a maximum of 3 minutes. Residents may raise new issues, identify community problems, comment on past, present, or future board agendas. Absent extraordinary circumstances, the board will not respond or react to the issues raised, and they should not be discussed or debated at the time. We request that residents speak respectfully and refrain from criticizing or disparaging individual committee members, town staff, or other resident groups or individuals. And we request that residents refrain from making comments that contain political statements or include commentary, criticisms, or other statements about any town staff. Individuals may speak at the discretion of the chair. Is there any public comment in the room? Or anyone on Zoom who has a public comment? I see Cindy Cavallero. Just a minute, Cindy.
She should be good.
Cindy?
She has herself muted.
Cindy, can you unmute? While we're fixing this glitch, if people have public comment and they want to email it to me, they can do so at nduffy, D-U-F-F-Y, @swampscottma.gov.
Hi, you were able to hear me now?
We can hear you, yep.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I'd like to just first off acknowledge Mary Ellen Fletcher, for her taking the time. This is regarding Pine Street. It's one thing to hear the residents' concerns and complaints, and it's another thing to actually take time, park your car for 2 or 3 hours, and witness it firsthand. And not on just one occasion, but a few occasions, Mary Ellen spent her Saturdays or middays and got a really good idea of what was going on the streets, even after the initial meeting with the police department. So I just want to personally thank the board and especially Mary Ellen for taking time to really see what a nightmare it's been since the buses and the traffic. And for something new, people thought it was mostly coming from the New Ocean Street up towards Pine, but a lot of it is coming around the corner from Railroad Ave where there's no stop sign or anything else, which Mary Ellen got a good dose of what it's like. So I just wanted to personally take the time and thank everyone.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Nice to hear from you. Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, we will move on to our first agenda item. Very exciting to have a special guest here tonight. I think that Jenny Armini, who's our next representative for the SXA.
Or, Jenny, if you want, you can take a seat right
If you want to sit down,
Yeah.
yeah,
You
we can get a microphone for you.
can,
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chairman Duffy,
Sure.
and to the entire Select Board for welcoming me here this evening. The board and Sean Fitzgerald have been incredibly kind and welcoming. I have two left, Katie and Peter, to have coffee with, and I'm looking forward to that. But it's really been a wonderful experience to get to know all of you, just like it's been, honestly, a wonderful experience to get to know Swampscott the last, 9 months of my life more deeply than I did before. I feel incredibly fortunate to be able to represent Swampscott in the House. Perhaps all representatives believe that their district is the most beautiful, but I don't think that there's any question that I won the lottery, not the $2 billion lottery, but something more precious. And you know, at a few of the forums, actually, throughout the campaign, the candidates were asked how the needs of Lynn, Swampscott, and Marblehead differ. And my response was always the same. All people in all three communities want to raise their families on a sustainable, healthy planet in communities with safe, affordable neighborhoods, excellent schools, and access to health care. In my view, after this experience, the distinctions are more in the personalities and in the spirit of the community. In Swampscott, I found a very special mix of forward-thinking, open-hearted, civically engaged individuals who respect what's gone before, but see the past as a foundation for the future. And nothing underscored that more for me than on Friday at the Veterans event when we had Swampscott school children offering gifts to our older veterans. Another example is the work you put into bringing to light the stories of Indigenous people who made Swampscott their home. I've been doing some reading. I am a lover of history, and I'm a complete nerd. So I found out that on May 1st, 1952, then Congressman William Bates inserted a brief history of the town of Swampscott into the Congressional Record in Washington in celebration of the town's 100th birthday. Farmers and fishermen and well-heeled resort goers all made an appearance in his telling. But it won't surprise you that the stories of those who came before John Humphrey are untold. Apparently, life here began only when King Charles gave his land grant in 1628. And that's not the case today, because Swampscott took on its own history boldly, and courageously and honestly so that future generations would know the truth. But a successful state representative isn't the product of one town or one spirit. My job is to apply the best of each community in legislating and decision-making, and to represent the interests of each community with equal energy and enthusiasm and commitment. Swampscott's interests are my interests, and I can't wait to get to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. It's been great getting to know you over the summer and working with you already. and I know you've been busy, and we're all looking forward to a great relationship and many coffees and many check-ins.
Absolutely.
I welcome the board for their comments.
I thought this was a grant announcement.
You're getting ahead of yourself, Peter.
Not yet.
Not unlike Peter.
Fair enough.
But if you have any ideas, let me know.
So I want to say thank you. You know, I've seen you out there, Farmers Market, the Veterans Day, the Memorial Day that we had for Jennifer Harris. It's just really appreciated. The one thing that I really would like to see is your presence several times at the select board meeting. So if you and the chairman could make arrangements so that we would see you, you know, maybe 3-4 times a year, including at town meetings, so that people really see you. I think that's something that I think is a big opportunity, because in the past, we really didn't see the rep, and that's not a negative on the rep or a negative on the select board, but I just think it's an opportunity for the future for us to have a bigger public communication, so people could really see what's going on in the town. And I really appreciate your hard work, and good luck to you.
Thank you. I look forward to coming back as often as you want.
Good.
Jenny, it's been awesome getting to know you.
Thank you.
And you take this. I mean, you'd won the primary. You hadn't even been sworn in, and you've really attacked the role with vigor.
Thank you.
And you have so many ideas, and I have so many ideas, and this board has so many ideas, and I look forward to working with you for a long time, and really bringing some of these big, audacious goals, here, and actually executing on them within the town of Swampscott, and that's what makes me excited.
And that's what I love about Swampscott, because you have big, audacious goals.
So I'm getting an email that people
They're
can't
working on
hear us. Are they working on it? Okay. Sorry.
Can I say that grant thing again?
That's why.
Your microphone can be heard, ours cannot.
Okay.
Jesus.
Sorry.
How predictable is that?
I arranged that.
Yeah.
Say coincidence?
Not at all.
Yeah. And are there any more comments from the board? Well, thank you for being here. We look forward to working with you. It's been great getting to know you, and
Thank you for having me.
thanks, Jenny.
I'll be back.
Thanks, Jenny.
Everyone just holds on a minute. I just want to, do you think we're okay now? We are okay. Okay, thanks. All right, good. So,
I thought you were here for a grant announcement.
laugh track.
Record.
We can edit it later.
We can really,
Yeah.
Ethan, make sure you take that before we go online, please.
So if it's okay with the board, we're going to take something out of order. We have a discussion and possible vote on a sculpture acceptance. I believe we have Roger Volk with us here this evening. So I'd like to bring that to the top of the agenda so we can be respectful of Roger's time and talk about this incredible gift that he's bestowing on the town. Sean, I think you may have a brief presentation.
Sure. Diane, would you be able to bring up the presentation? Gino is going to help me with this, but really, it has been wonderful to get to know Roger. Roger is somebody that cares deeply about Swampscott. He is a Big Blue, to the core fan. He has spent years announcing our Big Blue football games, and really, he's been the voice of a generation. He's had an opportunity to see a generation of Swampscott youth really, excel on those fields, but he's been something for their families and certainly for the community. He loves Swampscott, and it's really wonderful to hear him talk about this town. It's wonderful to hear him talk about how he now lives in the former high school that he attended. Those walls and that property has a memory to him. He's, I think, very generously offered to donate 2 statues. These statues have been prepared and created by a renowned artist. They're sculptures that really reflect a joy of life that I think many of our residents have felt about growing up in Swampscott. I'm going to give Gino a chance to just say a few words right now about Roger and get the presentation pulled up. But Gino, you've been on the gridiron for a few years, holding some signs.
Yep.
What have you come to know about Roger and his voice?
I'm in trouble.
Yeah, as Roger said.
I heard he was a half-decent golfer, right? Is that?
I can attest to that. I think we won a number 3 guests.
I took him with me to a golf tournament, and we won.
We did.
No kidding.
No thanks to me. What?
Well, yes, it was. At least one shot, remember, on one hole.
1 shot in 18 holes, so I was doing good. But enough about Roger sometimes, too. We got to talk about his lovely wife, Elaine. And me and Elaine go way back.
Yeah, way back to youth hockey.
Youth hockey days, so we're talking 40, but we're not even going to talk about how many years it is. But we've met on several occasions to discuss the acceptance of these sculptures. We've looked at several locations, but we're going to leave that up to the board on where they want to put the final destination for these statues.
Great. All right, now that we've got the presentation up, why don't we?
Can I just give you a little bit of...
Sure.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for allowing us to be here to talk to you people. It's an honor to be here. Chairman Duffy and Sean and David and Mary Ellen and Katie and Steve. Peter. I almost got there. Almost made it. And Gino and everybody else. And thank you for allowing me to be here. Let me tell you why this is happening. Okay? Very simply, I have been living in Swampscott and have loved Swampscott for just under 80 years. Anybody that age here? Yeah, not even close. Not even close. But I have been here all my life. I went to Stanley School in Swampscott. I went to Hadley Junior High School. I went to Swampscott High School. And I've always been involved in Swampscott, and I go to every football game that's home, and I announced for 20 years the football games. Loved every bit of it, even though it took every Saturday away from golf in September and October. But I love Swampscott, I really do. I feel for it. This is my town. I mean, there aren't many that can say that they lived here and went to school here and just did everything here. And that's where we are. Elaine also and her family, we're Swampscott athletes, Swampscott everything. So, again, I'm very happy for that. And I also wanted to thank Jenny before she left that we got to thank King Charles for donating Swampscott to us, huh? Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So, good for King Charles. I learned something today. King Charles. Okay, so the statues are something similar. We were in Florida, Elaine and I, and we were walking down on Palm Beach, Worth Avenue, which is a kind of expensive place, okay? If you've been there, you know how gorgeous it is. And we saw an opening of a studio, and we walked in and we looked at the different things, and there were all statues of this prince from Romania, and his name was Prince Magno. Old guy, rough. We met him, very cold and, a sculpture all his life. And we saw one of the statues there that was 5 children holding hands and called Happy Days. Now, we have 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls. I got that wrong a few minutes ago. I get killed for that one. 3 boys and 2 girls. And these were 5 statues of 5 children holding hands with only one of the statue's leg on the ground. Everything else was suspended. And it was very expensive. And I said, that's like 10 times more than I ever thought I would want to spend. And we said, thank you very much, and we left. And about 9 months later, I got a phone call from his agent. And the agent said that Prince Manuel is dying, unfortunately, and he's not doing any more statues, and he'll take any offer that you want to give him for your statue, which was not a good call because it cost me a lot of money for the amount. I offered him some money, and he said accepted, and we brought the statues to my house in Swampscott, which we lived for 34 years on Little's Point. And right in front of our house, I'm sure many of you have gone by and seen those 5 statues in front of our house. If you've ever been in Little's Point, in the Point, you've seen the statues. You didn't know who the heck lived there, but that was me. And now here we go to a condo at Swampscott High School, Fisherman's Watch, and if we put the statues in the house, we wouldn't have the master bedroom. So we thought that might be more important. So what are we going to do with the statues? We have 2 choices. We can sell them, or we can donate them. And I got to tell you, it was exciting to me to be able to say, I want to donate these to the place I love, Swampscott. And here's 5 happy children. What could be better than have 5 happy children as you walk into Phillips Park, to the football game, to Bondalevich Field, I think that's it. And, Bloxage Field. I said it only about 4,000 times in the 20 years. Right as you walk in, 5 happy children holding hands, welcoming the people that walk into Swampscott. To me, that's more than anything I would ever want. And I also had another statue that we bought, and that was 5 fishermen. And there were 5 fishermen on a log. I think you'll see a picture in a minute, but I just want to give you a back history of it. And the 5 fishermen are there, and that's also something I'm donating to the town of Swampscott, and that can go right at Fisherman's Beach, right where that cannon is, right next to it would be beautiful. 5 fishermen returning from the sea. I think that's it. That's what I wanted to tell you people. That's why I'm excited about this. I have to tell you, I flew home yesterday afternoon from Florida so that I could make sure that I was here for this meeting. So I'm glad you allowed me to be here, and I think I've said my 3 minutes, and thanks.
Thanks, Roger. Diane, if you could flip forward the pictures of the statue, I think we got the, so these are the 5 children that you described, Roger.
The statue.
That's it.
I had an opportunity to actually visit you a few years ago when you lived there, and I was struck by just how wonderful and happy those children looked. And Diane, if you just advance to the next, this is the statue of the fisherman. Again, 5 children just balancing on a log, just having a wonderful time. We did look at next slide, a few locations in Swampscott. I think in some ways, we just need to spend a little bit more time thinking about what would be the most appropriate location. We have schools, we have certainly parks and, properties, but we have a number of boards and committees, and I think we should work with a number of stakeholders to really find that best location. But certainly a wonderful token of artist, but also, more importantly, a child that grew up in Swampscott and cares deeply about Swampscott. Your love for this town is evident, and certainly I want to thank you and your wife and your family for thinking about the town and for your years of service, volunteering your voice to Swampscott. It's a real gift. I've heard some people suggest that perhaps you actually record your voice on all our town hall voicemail messages. So it may be an additional service that you can give to the citizens of Swampscott, but I'll turn it over to the board for their thoughts.
Thank
Sean,
you.
and
Thank you, Sean, for your kind words. Thank you.
And thanks, Roger and Elaine, for being here. I really appreciate it. It's great to have you here in person, and I appreciate all the effort to get here and all the background. It's been great getting to know you over the phone and hearing the story, and I appreciate your patience with this. I know this is something you've been wanting to do for a while, and I just echo Sean's words on your generosity to the town of Swampscott, and also everything that you've given back to the town that you've loved for your whole life. So thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. These statues they signify joy. And
Have you seen them? Have you,
Well,
any of you,
I'm looking
the picture, but have you actually
no,
seen?
I have not.
The actual seeing of the statues is 10 times better than the picture. Honest.
No,
But that's, you'll see them soon.
I certainly believe that, and I loved hearing the story, because we had heard the story from Sean, but having you, Roger, and your wife Elaine tell the story to us, it just means so much coming from you, and seeing these statues of joy that will be permanently displayed within our town is something that we need, and it's an emotion that we need more of, is joy. So thank you.
You're welcome. We brought us great pleasure, and I hope it brings the same to the many, many people in Swampscott that'll be able to smile when they see them. That's right. They just need a smile.
Yes.
So thank you again, Roger. And I have seen these. And I have to be honest, I always thought that you had a sculpture made of your children.
We're not going to say we didn't.
So,
We don't tell them.
I won't, but that's what I always thought. But, thank
We'll
you
keep it
very
a
much.
secret.
It's funny, they're 3 boys and 2 girls, and that's our children.
That's what attracted us
Yeah,
to it.
yeah. I don't, if, yeah.
Both have.
Well, this is great.
I echo the rest of the board's sentiments, and your
Thank you.
story resonates with me. My husband was born and raised here, and now we're raising our children here, so you're sort of a fast-forward view of perhaps we hope to leave a legacy on Swampscott as well. So I really appreciate that you thought, how could we bring joy to this community further than what you have, and that is a wonderful attribute, so thank you so much.
You're very welcome. I think you were about 100 years before me, or after me.
Maybe not 100.
Close.
Roger Lane, thank you. You're generous and kind-hearted. And we're grateful for you both.
Thanks. Thank you.
Great, so with that, I would entertain a motion to accept these 2 statues or sculptures as gifts to the town of Swampscott.
So moved.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll enjoy these for a long time together. That's my wish.
Thank you, thank you. I should get up.
Thanks for coming.
Let me know if you need anybody to carry
Thank
luggage
you.
down to Florida.
Ah, okay.
Do me a favor, take Elaine out for a nice dinner tonight, all right? Don't-
On you? Is it on you?
Not for this-
Big shot. Big shot. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Without pleasure, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Roger, when are you heading back?
You want to know how many hours?
Yeah, you going right back?
Well, we were going to come back for Thanksgiving, so instead we're going to stay here until after Thanksgiving.
Okay,
I think.
great, excellent.
Enjoy. Healthy and
Great.
happy.
You too.
Thank you.
Kids don't know me, but, yeah, I know.
All right,
Get in touch with Ted. He knows me very well.
All right.
okay, so
Happy holidays.
next on the agenda, we have discussion and possible vote on BYOB policy. We had a first read of this at our last meeting, and provided some feedback to Angelica. She's here tonight with us again, and I appreciate the work you did in between meetings to incorporate our feedback and notes into a revised policy, and that's what we have here in our packet tonight, and was emailed to you all, I believe, at the end of the week last week. So are there any questions about this? We did do a first read, so I don't know if people have questions or comments with the new language that's here.
I had a comment just about the annual fee for the BYOB permit, which is number 20. I'm just one person, but I'm of the opinion that, you know, the annual fee for the BYOB permit should be zero. I think we should help our local businesses, and I think by doing that is waiving the BYOB permit fee. I think it's, you know, certainly the intent, or my intent would be to have them invest in their business, and there will be some increased costs for, you know, just from liability requirements and training purposes, those types of things. And I think it's a small token and something that we can do to ensure that, you know, that the select board is doing what we can to be as business friendly as possible. So that's just my 2 cents.
Okay. Thanks, David. I think, you know, I think when we discussed at the meeting last time, part of the idea of the fee, and this isn't in disagreement, but just as a reminder, was just, we definitely also want to encourage businesses to apply for full liquor licenses, so to try not to make this too easy to do, but I don't necessarily disagree with that idea, and I don't think the $400 fee is crucial for the town. So I'd be happy with that amendment if others went along with it.
You know, I don't disagree with David. However, there are a couple things. Number one is this is an expense to the town, and you know, I think that possibly considering even lowering it. But are you saying just to eliminate it as a one-time the first year, or what was it? You're just saying no fee?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is we review fees annually,
Yeah.
so I would say this should be zero until we review it again.
Okay. So when do we review fees? What month? Because this will go into effect like in January.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
We have it's in the handbook.
yeah, I don't think we have, at least since I've been on the board, reviewed fees. Peter, I don't know if you have any insight on that, but I think it's been something that we've wanted to do, but I don't think that we've done it on a regular annual basis.
Oh, I thought this was a grant announcement. I'm going to stick with that.
You know,
No, we haven't done it, but I know staff has actually done it and reported to us, but we have not as a board.
we've discussed doing it before we approve the budget or present the budget, typically January.
Okay.
So basically, I'm good with not putting any extra pressures on a business, but I do have to ask, I do have to think about, is this a cost to the taxpayer? So does the taxpayer have to pay for the police department to go in and check? Does the taxpayer have to pay for, if it's no cost to the taxpayer, then
I mean,
I would
you could argue
100% agree.
many things are a cost to the taxpayer, but I think the cost of not having successful small businesses is even greater. And so I think David's idea of trying to help some small businesses, you know, have option of policy that says, you know, customers can bring a modest amount of alcohol in, help them be successful. Perhaps they will come back and apply for another license that would be more advantageous to them, that would have a tiered cost. And so I think this is a good way for us to say, you know, come to Swampscott, open up a business, and you know, avoid another expense. They're going to have a lot of expenses as a small business, and this, to me, sounds like a mindful adjustment. And I certainly see it as not a cost avoidance or a lack of revenue, it's an investment. And so at times I think it's important for us to make these types of investments.
I do think that the policy imparts a responsibility on a small business that for them to stop and think about a fee and participating is sometimes what is necessary for them to understand the full responsibility of what they're taking on as part of a BYOB. And that is one of the hesitations I have with making it not be a fee. Maybe having it be a fee which is reimbursed at the end of the year if there are no policy violations or something like that. I just don't want them to take the privilege lightly.
Any other comments about this? Or any other questions about the policy in general?
Well, I think, to that point, Katie, I think that proof of liquor liability insurance, that would put an increase. I don't know the dollar amount, though. I mean, like, I really, that would just be a question.
A few years back, the zoning board made a change to their fee structure that said if you were an existing Swampscott business and you were relocating to somewhere else in Swampscott, and you, because of our zoning bylaw, needed to file again with the zoning board, that they would waive the fee for doing that to try and help. And I thought the zoning board was right on point with that. And so I would make a motion to approve the draft policy with the provision that the fee is as stated here, except in the first year, it's $0 in the first year.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Angelica, you got that?
So it will be $0 for the first year, and then we'll reassess next year.
$0 for the first year, $400
Oh, $400.
going forward.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I already knew that. I'm sorry.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, I have to excuse myself in a few minutes for a little bit. Do you mind if we quickly just do the school? And I know that our assessor's waiting, so I apologize, but before we get to the reclassification, can we just do the school budget item, just so that you don't get to it while I'm gone?
Sure. Is that okay with everybody else?
Yeah.
All right, so we will move to the new elementary school contractor bids. And I think I will turn it over to you, Peter, and let you, and this is also on our warrant, so.
Yeah, thank you. So I think for those that have been following the school building committee, and I appreciate some of my colleagues who have been following the school building committee, just in the past week, a contract has been signed for the construction. To start the construction of the school, the site work and the demolition has been has been completed, and they've demobilized, and the new contractor is imminently going to mobilize on it. When the bids came back, the construction budget, and there's a tab in your packet regarding this, but the construction budget, excuse me, that was in the MSBA approved approval for the hard cost was $77.9 million. That was a budget that was arrived at after going through 4 different pricing exercises, which the MSBA makes every school process go through. You're required to price your school using 2 estimators. One estimator works for the MSBA, I think, and the other one is the design team. And they have 2 estimators. We have to reconcile the estimates, and the goal there is to make sure that every step of the way you are on budget, and that you don't get to the end of the process and be materially out of budget and therefore not being able to proceed with the program. So that process happened at the end of schematics design, design development, and then 60% construction drawings, and then 90% construction drawings. And along the way, the school building committee made many amendments to the plans to keep in budget. It goes without saying, I think everybody here recognizes that we're in what seems to us to be unprecedented inflationary times. I don't know that it's unprecedented, but it certainly is painful, regardless. So throughout the process, there was over $12 million of reworking of the budget to make sure that the budget was within the approved budget. There were 2 general contract bids submitted for the school project. The lowest bid was $77.9 million. Which exceeds $79.7, excuse me, thank you. $79.7 million, which exceeds the hard cost number in place, and it requires, it's within the overall school budget, it just exceeds the hard cost line item, and it requires the school building committee to allocate a material portion of their contingency budget to the contract day one, leaving very little contingency in their budget. While it's disappointing that the low bid came in above our hard cost number, albeit within our budget numbers, I will say, and I want to give credit to the school building committee, and I want to give credit to the OPM, our owner project manager, and our design team. The MSBA, at its last board meeting, decided to suspend the accelerated repair program. And they did that because they realized that they needed significant increased funds to fund new school construction. Currently, the MSBA reimburses at a rate of $360 a foot as a cap. Every single project for a new school is well above $360 a foot. The MSBA recognizes it's time for them to increase that cap, and therefore, in the short run, have decided to suspend the accelerated repair program to provide more money. Unfortunately, those monies are going to be for schools that will be announced this year, not going retroactively. So Swampscott will not benefit from that increase. It's really important to put context to this. As of October, 5 of the 16 MSBA schools that were approved have already reported bid contracts. We are number 6. And of the 5, the average estimate came in 8.57% over budget. That's the average. There are communities that are literally $25 million above budget that have to go back and rework the whole program, that can't simply say, we just need to help with the contingency, that actually have to stop the process and go back to the drawing board and start from scratch because there isn't a financially feasible way for them to do it. Swampscott's project came back at half of that, at 4.14% overage. So when I factor that in, it will take that 8.57%, which is the average for the first 5, and lower it, thanks to Swampscott, but we're still 4.14% above our hard cost line item. The SBC explored multiple ways in which to handle this and really discussed at great length the prudence of signing a contract that required them to use a majority of their hard cost contingency before the construction even commenced. And so therefore, they reviewed several things. First and foremost, they looked at their existing budget and they determined which line items had excess monies that they know as of this date they will not need, and therefore they would reallocate that excess money to contingency. I appreciate them doing it. Many projects don't do that. They keep those line items for future use, even knowing that there's excess money there. Here they identified approximately $350,000 in the swing space line item. The swing space line item is a line item that was approximately $1 million, and that line item is used to pay for the temporary space, the transfer to the temporary space, and the accommodation for students while construction is ongoing. Thanks to the very favorable deal that the town was able to structure with the Lynch Van Adderloo YMCA, who is leasing space from St. John, and who in turn subleased the space to us for a 2-year period, we were able to save substantially. Modular classrooms, trailers, are very, very expensive. You have to buy them if you don't have another temporary space. In Swampscott, we're fortunate enough that we have a temporary space, which was and is a school, and we were able to upgrade ventilation and make other improvements in that space to make it a safe and wonderful place for the entire Stanley community, except for the kindergarten class, which is at Hadley. As a result of that, there was a $350,000 savings, which is exciting and really important here. The SBC ultimately decided that it was the prudent thing to come back and ask for additional funds to increase the contingency line item back to the full 5%, which was the original contingency line item. The additional funds that are being asked for are the 5%, if you will. I'll tell you the number. The number is going to be $3.25 million total, but only $2.9 million in new funding, because $350,000 is going to come from that reallocation of the swing space line item. That additional $2.9 million will be contingency, and contingency only. It's not money that's available to buy or build new or different things than the base school that has been approved. As a matter of fact, when the school building committee issued the RFP and they issued the bid set, they made the decision that there were going to be 0 add alternates in the projects. So, said differently, the school building committee didn't rely on the bids coming in lower so that they could add more things to the project. They said, this is the base project that we promised the citizens and residents of Swampscott, and they bid just that project. Now, this contingency line item will be available to deal with unforeseen circumstances that require contingency. For example, just in the last 24 hours, one of the subcontractors has filed notice that they are withdrawing their sub-bid, and we have to now go to the second sub-bid. As strange as mass procurement law is, and how I think backwards it is, they are allowed to do that. The contractor is not responsible for that. We are responsible for that. So that's going to be a change order. We will have to pay for that. That's the exact type of thing that's unforeseen that will fall to contingency, and the contingency line item will pay for this. In talking with the Finance Committee, and thanks to Cinder McInerney for focusing us on it, and thanks Patrick for our treasurer for doing some more research on it, by a simple vote of town meeting, we are able actually to increase our exemption, say it correctly for me, the
Debt exclusion.
The debt exclusion, thank you. We're able to simply increase the debt exclusion to add the $2.9 million without a new referendum. And so we can do it within that exemption, which is an important thing for us to do. A couple of reasons. One, it burns off. It's the way to do it, right? It burns off as we pay it back. And then number two, it doesn't count against our cap amount otherwise. So the SBC has put forth a recommendation, a preferred recommendation of asking town meeting for an increase to the contingency line item, not any other line item, but the contingency line item of $2.909983 million. And that money would be, again, for contingency of hard costs to ensure that there's not any cost difficulty. The expectation of the design team, while funding a full 5% contingency, is that historically between 2 and 3.5% is what is used typically in projects. It does not mean that 4 and 5 doesn't get used. It just means that typically you're able to manage the project to use less than that. The decision was made, however, that going to town meeting and requesting less than what would be a market contingency would not be prudent, because it would present a difficult situation in the event in this hyperinflation market that something unforeseen that was very expensive happened, that it would delay the school, and the cost of delay would be substantially more than the cost of the change order that we would be faced with. So they've made that recommendation. There's a warrant article, a draft warrant article for this board to consider putting forth in the warrant that would ask town meeting for an increased of $2.909983 million.
Thanks, Peter, for that explanation and all the work that you and the SBC and everyone else have been doing over the last few weeks since the bids were opened. Any questions on this from the board?
I just want to commend the parties for these conversations, which have been exhaustive and ongoing for the last couple of weeks. The SBC, the Finance Committee. It wasn't, let's come up with an idea and execute it. It was an exhaustive conversation which involved all the options and the scenarios playing out and how that would affect our kids coming to school in 2 falls. So I just want to commend everybody that participated. It was, in my opinion, a very thoughtful conclusion to come to option 1A, which would be reallocating the swing space money. As Peter said, they could have kept that money and said, no, we're keeping that in case something else happens, and they didn't. So they are putting their money where their hope is, which is to have a new school very soon. So I commend them for doing that as well, and I appreciate that recommendation.
I just have a quick question.
Yep.
Patrick, so how does that work as far as with bonding? Do we just bond that later on? Because there was still a small amount that needed to be bonded. We just wait until later and then?
It would be later in the project.
So hopefully maybe rates will get a little bit better.
That would be the hope.
Or hopefully not ever have to bond it, right?
Yes.
Since it's contingency.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay, is there a motion to approve option A1 as recommended by the school building committee for the amount of, well, I guess it's $2,909.
$2 million.
$2 million, excuse me, $2,909,000.
We're going to vote for
$983. Jeez. Thank you.
Katie moved.
Is there a second?
second.
Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Peter. All right, so now we are moving on to the fiscal 2023 tax rate classification presentation, which I think is Mr. Simmons and Patrick Luddy. I'm not sure who we're going to first, maybe you, Sean?
Yep, I'm happy to kick it off. This is our annual tax classification presentation. This is really where, we hear from our assessor and the work of the Board of Assessors to annually update our values and really bring them up to the ad valorem value or the market value. Every year it changes. Each of the categories change. It shifts the ratios between different property classes. So it's important for the board to really understand that. It's important for the town to understand that. We're a small town. We have commercial properties. We have industrial properties. We have residential properties. We have condos. We have 2 families, single families, 3 families, miscellaneous properties. They all change. And hearing about that helps us understand how we really contemplate how the tax levy impacts all of those categories. One year to another, certain proportional shifts may put more or less burden on different categories of properties. And what we've tried to do over the last 5 years has been to balance that impact by strategically using the town's free cash and financial position to level our tax rate. It's really challenging. Many communities don't get into this level of detail, but it's important that we spend some time and really understand the numbers, understand the changes. I want to thank Richard Simmons. Richard is a true public servant. He is our interim assessor, part-time, working a full-time job. Richard has, spent a lifetime working as an assessor in a number of communities. Has expert knowledge when it comes to assessing, and he has been generous and spending some time helping Swampscott out. I'm going to turn it over to Richard, and we're going to step through some of the analysis that he has pulled together and the updates that he has added to this presentation. Halfway through, Patrick will pick up and talk a little bit about the budget and set a primer for tax rate classification. We don't have all of the data to actually make a decision tonight. We still are looking for new growth revenue from one particular property, and we're looking for free cash certification from the Department of Revenue. This typically has been a 2 or 3 part conversation with the select board and the community. So tonight is a chance for us to update the community on values and get a primer on how we work with Department of Revenue to set a tax rate. That said, Richard, it's your... you can use the microphone. I can bring a microphone to you, and you just need to say next slide to Diane, and she will advance the slide.
Is this active?
Yeah.
Okay. First off, I want to thank the Board of Selectmen, or the Select Board, sorry. I knew I was going to screw that up, and I apologize for doing that. The Select Board for inviting me here tonight, and I'm happy to talk about the values that have been generated. Happy to represent the Board of Assessors for the town and go through the process with you. If we move on to the next slide, Diane. Things we're going to be discussing tonight are value changes, yearly trends, comparisons, a budget review Patrick will be doing, and review of the next steps in the process. Next slide. Okay. The Board of Assessors determines the assessed values for a town. The assessing department is responsible for determining new growth also. The values are really derived by reading the market. We're looking at the market. The market dictates what values are going to be. And new growth are new taxes created by new construction and new development in town. New growth and the budget all play in determining the levy. Assessed values, I've said a million times, allocate the levy across the levy across the community. In other words, we're dealing with a fixed budget. The budget can only go up 2.5% per year, with the exception of new growth and overrides. The assessed values allocate that budget to each individual taxpayer, each individual parcel in town. If the values quadrupled or tripled in the course of a year and the levy didn't change, the taxes wouldn't change. It's a pure allocation of a fixed levy. So that's something you need to understand. You need to remember when we're talking about values. It isn't, as a friend of mine, ex-selectman for the town of Linfield, once said, Dave Drislane, people don't care about the increase in value, it's the increase in taxes that really gets them. And I understand that, having been in this business for 30 years.
I'd say, people talk about a tax rate, and when people start talking to me, oh, look, we have a low tax rate, I'm like, talk to me about your tax bill. Your tax rate literally has nothing to do with your bill. Your bill is your budget. It's your revenue. And when you look at your bill, that helps you understand what direction your town is going through. If you just look at a tax rate, you don't know, because your tax rate can fly all over the place based on changes in value.
Sure. And changes in the budget.
That's right.
Very importantly. And actually, the budget is more determinant
Absolutely.
than the value is, in many respects. The Board of Selectmen, or the Select Board, at their discretion, has the right to shift a portion of the levy off of residential properties onto commercial properties. That's called tax classification. And also within the levies, the valuation of commercial, industrial, and personal property and residential property, the Board of Selectmen, or the Select Board, God, I keep doing that. I've got to get past that. The Select Board has the right to grant exemptions for residential properties and for small commercial properties. And that, again, is at the discretion of the Select Board. So if you go on to the next slide, every year we look at what's happened from year to year. And this first slide gets into that in some degree of detail. Assessed values have increased, particularly in residential properties. When we're looking at this year's values, we're looking at values that existed as of 1/1/22. And so when you get your tax bill in December, that value is a year old. And it's determined by the sales that occurred between 1/1/21 and 12/31/21. And if you look back in time, what had just happened in 2020, the pandemic? Properties were off the market for a long period of time. 2021 was the first time the properties came on the market, and they went through the roof. We experienced during 2021 approximately 15.9% increase in value. That's a rate of about 1.3% per month. That's astounding. And so that is the basis what we're looking at in residential properties. Commercial properties don't go up as quickly. The demand on commercial properties isn't as high, and the supply isn't as great. And so there isn't the real pressure on commercial properties that we have on residential properties. On condos, if you look at the condos on this list, they increased at 20.9%. That's well above the 15.9% that single families increased. But that has occurred primarily because we had a condo project come online in town called White Court. Those units sold between $2 to $3+ million per unit, 19 units. That ended up adding $40 to $50 million in value in that class of properties. That's why that class went up so drastically. The other property that stands out in looking at these is miscellaneous residential, 109s. They're properties that are multi-unit buildings on one lot of land, usually 2 buildings on one lot of land. And what happened with that was a 26.6% increase in value from one year to the next. And that was the result of an addition of one property. One property moved from a 2-family, 104, to 109. That was a $600,000 increase in that classification. And that's what kicked the value up, the values up so much in that class. The other thing that added value to that class of properties were for some reason, it's a very small class of properties. There are only 11 to 12 units in that class. 11 and 21 and 22 22 and 23 was 12 units, and a lot of those properties had building permits, and so they went up precipitously because of that also. Everything else seemed to be more or less in line, and you're going to get some changes. The other thing is the commercial property, of course, did not go up very much, 9.7% one year to the next. And so when that happens, when you have a precipitous increase in value in residential properties and you don't have as much of an increase in commercial properties, the levy gets shifted off of commercial properties and onto residential properties. It's a pure function of the market and the market values. So what I want to look at in the next slides is to look at what happened in the market. And we're looking at several different levels. We're looking at Swampscott individually and what's happened. We're looking at Swampscott in comparison to Essex County. And we're looking at Swampscott in comparison to a group of peer towns that are in Massachusetts, the eastern part of Massachusetts, that we think are comparable to Swampscott. On this slide, you'll notice the commercial, industrial, personal properties and this shows the trend from 2018 to 2023, and you don't see a lot of change. Actually, in the last year, 2022 to 2023, commercial properties increased about 1.6%, barely.
One thing I do want to point out on this slide is if you look at the orange, we have one industrial property in town.
Right, that's it, the aggregate.
Yep. And that trend line there, I think, reflects a sense that, we've looked at the market, we've looked at comps, and reflects the market for a very unique type of industry.
Extraordinarily unique.
Can I ask you a quick question? So on commercial properties, that would be Vinton Square, Whole Foods, places like that?
Yeah, Humphrey Street.
So those properties didn't increase?
They did. They increased on average 9.7%.
Right. And
9.2. No, I'm sorry. 9 point.
Overall, in the overall class.
Got it.
And so what happens, and again, what happens is, the slice of the pie shrinks for commercial and it expands for residential. And so you have less of a commercial base to pay the levy. And that's something that we've talked about over the last few years about Swampscott really needing to focus on economic development because it'll shift more and more of those costs to a residential base. We don't want to see generally, the loss of commercial properties. When zoning board decisions convert commercial property over to residential, especially on Humphrey Street, we lose the ability to tax at that additional split rate. So we lose additional revenue, and that has a negative impact on the town's overall financial position.
On the next slide, Dan, if you could, look at the breakdown of residential and commercial properties in town, and this pie chart that's been created at the top. And this is typical of most residential communities in Massachusetts, most suburban residential communities. We have an incredibly large residential base, 93%, and a commensurately small commercial base, commercial, industrial, and personal property base of about 7%. And so when you have an increase in residential properties, that even exacerbates the problem even more. This chart shows the breakdown of residential values from 2018 to 2023. The values have increased about 15% in the last year, 15.9%, as I stated earlier. And that, again, is the function of the market. There's nothing we can do about the market. And since 2018, the residential values have increased by 53%. It's a lot.
But if you bought a house in Swampscott, you made a good investment.
Yep. And we all have done that, I think, to a great extent. So good for us, but at the same time, we have to pay the taxes on it too, unfortunately. If you look at the next slide, this just addresses the change in value on a median basis and on an average basis. And again, this is all just a function of the market. The median, or the average on the next page, for condos increased 71% from one year from over the course of of 2018 to 2023. And again, that primarily increase was in the last year, and that increase was, again, Whitecourt. We go on to the next slide.
Wait a second, I just want to double check. So the median assessment, it's 609?
The median,
What is it?
the median assessment this year is 609, yeah, 609.7, 609,700.
No. That's not commercial,
That's residential.
residential.
That's residential.
And then your average,
The average is 1,891,938 in a single
that's
family.
residential?
That's residential.
So but it says commercial industrial, that's not correct? Isn't that what it
On the bottom it says
Oh, I'm sorry.
average of commercial.
Average commercial industrial, I'm sorry. That's 1,800,000. That's, we're looking at single family, it says 824,268. And if,
Single family is 16.
right, and if you look at, on the previous page, median is 685,850.
Right.
Got it.
It's a lot of data.
Good.
If you go on to the next page, this shows what is unique about Swampscott and what I think is interesting. This shows the trend line for taxation, the average tax bill, in all 34 municipalities in Essex County, including Swampscott. Now, I've highlighted Swampscott in red to make it stand out a little bit more, and if you notice, All the towns in Essex County, with the exception of one, have gone up over that period, from 2013 to 2022. The only one that's gone down is us.
We call this the spaghetti chart. And so if you look to the left-hand side, you'll see that just a few years ago, we had the third highest average single-family tax bill out of the 34 cities and towns in Essex County. And as you train your eye moving to the right, you'll see each of these years, you know, we've made decisions starting in 2017 to start dropping the average single-family tax bill. And so it's been really a march towards the middle. You know, how do we, you know, continue to bring financial discipline to Swampscott where we can really strike a balance? This is not about a radical change to the middle. It's about striking a balance. And, you know, you can count as you move your eye to the right-hand side, you know, there are now a half a dozen or more communities that now have a higher average single-family tax bill. And over the next few years, as we stay the course, we will continue to really strike that balance. And I think this graph really kind of helps, you know, people understand this is why we, you know, negotiate some pretty difficult contracts, or, you know, why we have to make decisions about solid waste that are generally unpopular, or, you know, structure budgets in ways that are more sustainable. It's efforts to really strike that balance.
When we add the new school, where's that line gonna go?
It's going to go up a little bit. Every other one of these 34 cities and towns are adding schools. Every other one of these cities and towns are adding structural debt, renewing contracts at different times. But if we stay the course in terms of our overall approach to managing the fiduciary responsibilities we have, we'll continue on a very straight line. And we'll use our financial position to help ensure that Swampscott's taxpayers can have a predictable outcome when we set the levy.
Sean, and which communities, I'm kind of lost in the colors, which
Yep.
communities are now in excess of Swampscott's?
Well, if you look at the colors, so Rowley is in the pink. Let's see, Marblehead, I think 2 years ago, became more affordable than Marblehead, more affordable than Rowley. Let's see that.
Oxford's part of that?
You know, just a few years ago, Essex was less than Swampscott. We became more affordable than Essex. Let's see, I believe
Hamilton's above us.
Like Boxford. Is that Box?
Marblehead, yeah.
Topsfield.
Linfield's above us.
You know, when we go back to 17, we became, so you can see, you know, each of these years, a few of these communities, we became more affordable than in a few of these communities. Previously, we were much more expensive. So the colors kind of Groveland, and gray is Manchester by the Sea. So they're all trend line. This is all data that we get from the Department of Revenue. It's all on the state's website. We take that and we just track it every year. And we, oddly enough, more and more communities are above the red line, and we're staying the course.
Thanks.
And the next two slides are kind of a reinforcement of what we've just seen. Again, these are addressing the average single-family tax bill in Essex County as opposed to the average single-family tax bill in Swampscott. And again, you can see the trend line. In 2013, we were...
Previous slide, Di? Sorry.
Previous, there we go, thank you. In 2013, we were 41.34% above the average. And in 2022, we're at 8.818% above the average. So that's a considerable drop over the last 10 years. And so we're, again, this is just to reflect that we're moving to more towards the average for the county.
So
which I think is
all of,
important.
you know, the 34 cities and towns, on average, 40% increase over the period of time from 2013 to 2022. Swampscott, 7%.
Yeah, 7%. So that's noteworthy. And again, we're looking at value. This is, the next slide just shows the trend in values. Values have gone up. There's nothing we can do about that. It's just a function of the market. But I think the next page is very telling. In 2013, we were at $2,605 above the average tax bill for Essex County. In 2022, we're now $690 above. Again, every year it gets lower and lower and lower, and hopefully we'll get to that average.
Right.
But think about, you know, $2,600 a year more than the average. You know, that's a significant amount of money, you know, compounding a year after year after year more. As we look at today, you know, we're $690 above the average. And again, we've talked over the last few years, what is our goal? Is our goal to kind of get it down to zero? No. It's, you know, we're not looking for austerity. We still have among one of the highest average single-family tax bills in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It's not as high as it was 5 years ago, but it's certainly something that we have to be just mindful of. And when we get down to an average, we get to a place where we can actually feel as though we're striking a balance with just how much we're levying in taxes on our residents.
Next in this process, we're looking at ourselves within the context of the peer group. The peer group is Rockport, Winthrop, Ipswich, Georgetown, Middleton, Hamilton, Hull, Newburyport, Marblehead, which I added this year because I think it's relevant, and Manchester by the Sea, which I added, and Situate, and then my old hometown of Linfield. So these are all towns that more or less compare well to Swampscott. Not all of them are oceanfront, but some of them are a lot closer to the highway and don't have the 20 to 45-minute commute we have to get to Route 128. Mm-hmm. So there is some reason to compare them. So if we look again at the peer groups, the story is the same. Values increase every year. This is the next slide. Sorry.
Okay.
That's a function of the market again. But if you look at the next slide, you see the peer group has increased by 39% over the course of the period, and Swampscott again has increased 7%. So we're getting closer and closer to the average of the peer group, which is, I think, a nice goal to have.
Mm-hmm. So it's just interesting, just to point out with this slide, if you go to the far left, you can see, you know, we were 24% higher than the peer group in fiscal 13. In fiscal 22, we were 1% higher than the peer group. So we've actually hit a balance with the peer group. We're within a few points of where many similar communities are in terms of their average single-family tax bill. And I think that really does speak to the strategic direction that we set out to find a few years ago. And it helps us just understand that we're on the mark.
So also from an affordability perspective, so Mr. Simmons is,
You can call me Dick David for that. I would keep looking for my father who's died.
So just from our value perspective, as we're, you know, we're property owners, and, you know, so are, you know, 5,300 other residents in town or more. You know, how does this consolidation of, you know, of Swampscott to the peer group impact property values as a whole? I mean, is there an affordability perspective where
We're becoming more affordable as far as taxes go,
Yes.
for sure. And I think that's the main focus of the town, is to make the town more affordable. And does that increase the appeal of Swampscott? I would hope. I don't know whether, it's going to make it more popular than Marblehead. We definitely would like it to, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
And that leads nicely into the next slide, which is a direct comparison to the peer group and to, what's that town next to us?
Lynn?
No, that's a city. Marblehead, which isn't a rival, is it?
No.
No, not at all.
Like North and South Korea,
And so if you look at the blue line, that's the peer group. If you look at the orange line, that's Marblehead. I was trying to make it red, and I should have made the gray line blue. That's Swampscott. And again, Marblehead's taxes since 2013 have increased 40%. And so that story has been told. That's the residential end of it. The next slide gets into the commercial end. And how does this affect the commercial properties? And what are we doing to the commercial properties? And to some extent, are we hurting them by shifting the levy onto them? And that's a question that needs to be addressed to some extent, and I think is being addressed in these slides. If you look at the values on commercial properties over the last 10 years, they've increased somewhat in Swampscott and also in Essex County. More in Swampscott, but there doesn't seem to be adversely affecting the values of commercial properties in town. And if you look at the next slide, you'll notice that the increase in taxes in Essex County has been 28% over the last 10 years, and in Swampscott it's been 15%. So it's not a panacea, it's not perfect, but it is, to some extent, being held in some degree of perspective, in that we're not compromising the commercial viability of the town in favor of the residents, as we're trying to keep a balance, make a balance between the two.
So the efforts of Swampscott to try to keep the residential tax base more affordable also has a positive impact on, the commercial properties, even though they pay a significantly amount more than their peer group in Essex County. The increase has been significantly less.
And the final slide, Diane, and I know Patrick's chomping at the bit to get going, so I want to give him as much time as I possibly can. If you look at the average commercial tax bill for Swampscott from 2013 to 2022, it has changed from $17,498 to $17,609, which really isn't an extremely sharp increase in taxes. Again, that's an average, but at least it's an indice. So I thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them.
Any questions for Dick before we move on to Patrick?
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, yeah, really, it's always
Really.
interesting.
Sean was kicking me the whole time. So
No.
got to get
Yeah.
going on that.
It's so fortunate that we were able to have such a wealth of knowledge, somebody that has so much experience in what folks call the dismal art of
I don't think
economics.
it was being dismal. I kind of like it.
I remember my economics professor, they were like, this is the dismal science, economics. It's hard for us to understand what the market forces are going to be from one year to another, but it's important for us to really keep our eye on the ball and study the changes in value and get back to the master plan when we see more commercial properties cede or disappear because of zoning boards that make decisions that really are disconnected to the overall financial welfare of the town, the master plan gets subordinated to those conversations. And we've got to use this data to get back to, how do we strike a balance? How do we continue to keep our focus on affordability? There's only so many ways you can cut a budget before you have to start really getting into the bone. And you really have to start making Vinton Square more valuable commercially, making the MBTA neighborhood more valuable commercially, making Humphrey Street more valuable commercial. Like, we've got to think about ways to take residential properties and bring commercial investments back. You won't be able to cut your way out of additional efforts to make Swampscott more affordable without really dialing into the market forces that are subordinating your master plan.
So how do you get the zoning board to stop giving away?
Land use board summits, and you need to have that annually, and you need to help show this information to them and say, hey, look, we've squeezed the budget, we've as tight as we can in areas, and now it's up to everybody to really see where these numbers are taking us. If we want to continue efforts to kind of find the middle, and there's still work to do, it's gonna focus on economic development and strategic land use planning.
I want to thank the Select Board for your indulgence, and I'll pass it off to Patrick.
Thank you.
I'll turn this mic off. I assume you're standing there.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to step through the financial components of the tax rate setting process. Diane, I don't know if you can pull up those.
What is it?
The same slide deck.
Oh.
Okay, all right. So I'd like to recap something that we go over each year, which is how town meeting, how the select board and the finance committee can influence tax policy and ultimately the tax levy itself. And there's 5 major components that we can think about. So setting the town budget, setting all of the appropriations that town meeting makes, those feed into the tax levy. You know, what do we spend money on and how much are we spending each year? Estimating local receipts, that's something that I'm kind of tasked with, to work with the finance team and estimate local receipts when we develop the budget each year. And those are things like our excise tax, our fees, our departmental revenues. Those items all generate revenue that doesn't come from property taxes, and that offsets the amount of taxes we'll have to raise each year. We also have things like the small business exemption and the residential exemption, which is something that the assessor will go into more detail at another meeting, but those are options that the select board has to consider for the classification hearing. We also think about the use of free cash and reserves to further reduce our tax liability each year. And splitting the tax rate, we have shift options available to us from the state to have a split tax rate between residential and commercial, which is something that the town has done, you know, in the past consistently. So those are 5 kind of things just to think about as we step through. I'm going to step through the forms and the reports that we fill out and all the information that we pull together to determine tax levy and tax rate. So if you just go towards like the end. Okay, thank you.
I think it's, what slide is it? It's
20.
20, yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, Diane. So this is a very rudimentary form that we fill out from the state, but this is our appropriations for the year. These are all the things that town meeting has agreed that they would like to spend funds on. On the fourth line down, you see that large $66 million number, and then off to the right on the same line, there's a $7.5 million number. Those are our operating budgets. That's what that is, so that feeds in here. We also have uses of free cash in column C. We have our Chapter 90 and our transportation infrastructure funding in column D. So there's all these different pieces, and all these votes get reflected on this page, and they sum up into the total appropriations that we have to account for and describe which revenues we're going to use to cover each appropriation. Next slide. In addition to appropriations, we have state assessments, which are not appropriated by town meeting. We're obligated to pay state assessments as recipients of state aid. So this is just given to us each year from the state once the budget is set at the state level. So this year, our total state assessments is about $1.8 million. That's up over $300,000 from the prior year. And it's broken into two major categories, I would say, are MBTA and then also education-related, especially the charter school assessments. Those pull in here. Next slide. So once you've determined all of your appropriations and your state assessments, you add in the overlay, which is the amount that the Board of Assessors requires each year to cover what they anticipate for tax abatements and exemptions, any disputes that get resolved. We need to reserve an amount to cover those liabilities as well. So that gets plugged in through a calculation, and you get your total estimated revenue that you have to generate for the fiscal year. Next slide. And then you start describing the revenues that you need to cover all the appropriations and charges. So state aid is $6.6 million this year. That's net state aid is up $93,000 from last year. So when we say net, we say, revenue less the assessments. So it's not a huge jump for us, but it did go up, which is in the right direction. And this is also broken into two major categories. So you have education-related aid, which is primarily Chapter 70, and general government aid, which is primarily unrestricted government aid. Next slide.
So the increase is only 93,000
On a net basis, yes.
on a net basis?
Mm-hmm.
Probably a conversation to have with our new state representative.
We should have talked to, we should have made Jenny stay here for this.
That's right. And beyond state aid, we have to account for all our local receipts. So these are the different categories that the DOR requires us to report out. So we report out last year's actuals and then the estimates based on where we are this year. And there's things like excise tax, meals tax, your interest and fees, solid waste fees, rentals, building permits, et cetera. So this all gets fed into here with a calculation, and we have to justify each line to the DOR with a written description. So there's a lot of analysis that goes into this. And then once you've determined your state aid and your local receipts, you also are going to look at other funds. This is where we get into the application of free cash or other reserve funds if the town elects to do so to reduce the tax levy for this fiscal year. So highlighted in yellow is where we would plug that in once we have more information, but that feeds in, and then you can see on the bottom of this page, the total is docked out of your total appropriations and charges, and that gives you the levy. So talked a little bit about free cash. These are just our free cash balances since FY16. So you can see in FY16 we had a very large free cash balance, which would indicate that budgeting may be loose. We have overestimated our expenses or grossly underestimated our revenues, and that creates free cash. At that level, that would be excessive. So you can see we've tightened up the budget over the years with Sean and the finance director, and we've really crunched things down so we have a much more balanced operating result. We're more in the $3 to $4 million range for free cash, which is appropriate given our financial guidelines. Last year it was certified at 3.6. We're still waiting on this year's certification, but we're anticipating it very soon. Based on this year's budget, we're going to be looking to maintain a minimum of about $2 million in free cash, and the high end of the guideline is $3.4 million at 5% of budget. In addition to free cash, we have significant financial reserves built up over the past 7-8 years. Town has diligently contributed to these funds. We've grown them to levels we've never seen before. Financial policies require that we maintain 9 to 10% of the operating budget in general stabilization, which is the green, and 2 to 4% of capital stabilization, which is the blue. So between the two combined, we have 12.9% of our operating budget reserved. So that's a significant reserve to have. Not a lot of towns have that, and that sticks out in Swampscott. Our Standard & Poor's, which gives us our credit rating, has continuously pointed that out as a credit positive, so we're very happy to have that. So these are things that at our disposal at the Select Board and Town Meeting's disposal to further reduce the tax rate as needed and as they see fit.
Patrick, do you, I know it's out of your control, but do you all anticipate that we may have that free cash number before our November 30th meeting?
Oh, yeah, I anticipate that we will.
Okay.
Yeah. So beyond revenue and expense, and the current year, we develop a 10-year forecast each year. I've worked with Sean and Amy and the finance team to develop this. We're going to have this ready to share with you soon on an updated basis. But this model was developed several years ago, and it rolls up 10 years of historical data so that we have trend lines that we can use to inform the future. And also our capital plan feeds into this with debt service and our reserves. So this is a really helpful tool internally. We play with it a lot, and it helps us make decisions. But that's something that we're going to update and share with you shortly. And these are some of the assumptions and strategies I already talked about. 10 years of historical data. Revenue estimates are generally conservative. We don't want to run into an issue where our local receipts don't collect at the level we estimated, so we're very careful with that, and that helps balance the budget in the future years. Next slide. These are our next steps. I don't know if, Sean, you want to?
Yeah, happy to just go with it. So tonight was really kind of an overview of the valuations and our tax rate setting, methodologies. We hope to have our new growth finalized in the next week, couple of days.
Yeah, I'm going to be working with Mark Harrell from Patriot Properties tomorrow morning just to get that imported.
Essentially, it's just White Court or
White Court and some other.
a few other properties, but free cash could be as soon as next week as well. And so as soon as we get those two pieces of information, we can start modeling, what use of free cash or stabilization we can use to help balance the tax levy. Back in the late spring of last year, we actually modeled the use of some of the town reserves as we started thinking about how to offset the debt service for the elementary school. We had a number of public meetings with the finance committee, and it's going to be important to really just look at some of those public presentations and get a sense of what were we really trying to achieve. We also, have seen some changes in the town's property classifications. We talked a little bit about the increase in residential values up 15%, commercial up 9.7%, and so we're going to see a shift to residentials. And so part of our effort to try to stabilize the impact to residentials is using some of the town's financial reserves to, adjust that impact. So it's going to be important for us to model that. We will be meeting, at the end of the month, and it's our hope that over the next week we can start to really share with the board some of these models as soon as we get that data. But on our meeting on 11:30, we can review that in greater detail. We have our special town meeting on December 5th, where we are seeking to appropriate some funds to help offset the levy. We'll have a classification hearing right after that December 5th special town meeting, perhaps the next day or the 2 days after, and we'll set the tax rate. And middle to the end of December, we'll be issuing the first actual tax bills. That is the overview of classification and tax rate setting. Happy to answer any questions the board may have.
So with the tax bill, we're going to have our regular tax bill, and then there's also going to be an addition on there for the school. No? Would that be
All one bill.
excluded, that, right, all one bill, but we're going to also have that chunk from the schools going to be.
Yeah, the
be in
school's
there.
excluded,
Right.
but it's not.
Right, but, so the question is, what was the dollar amount that the average tax bill was going to see for the school? Was that 360? Does anybody remember?
We'll have to.
With the proposed use of reserves, it was 300.
On the median.
On the median,
On
single
the
family.
median?
Yep.
300 on the median?
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Patrick, thank you for that presentation. Anyone have any comments or questions about any of this or the process going forward? All right.
Good job, Patrick.
Thanks very
Thank
much,
you.
Patrick. And-
Thanks, Patrick.
All right, moving on.
Thank you, Dick. Appreciate it.
Moving on to the warrant. Special town meeting warrant. I believe we need to close it tonight, right, in order to
We do. We're
Printing.
going to be printing it tonight.
print and send
mailing it
out tomorrow. So why don't we go through this one by one? I don't think there's an awful lot that we're going to be able to be weighing in on as far as favorable or, but let's just take it one at a time. So, Article 1. Do we want to go, so Amy's not here, right?
Not
So it's
this.
you and Patrick, right, Sean?
Yep.
So Article 1's the appropriation for fiscal year 2023 operating budget. This is essentially a shuffle of funds.
That's right. We are making adjustments to a few line items, mostly. The enterprise funds, this was approved by the Finance Committee, and it's essentially a reconciliation of the enterprise.
Sean,
I think we talked about
Amy
this.
is on Zoom.
Okay.
We need her to step through this.
Okay. And so, yeah, so the Finance Committee recommended favorable action at their meeting on this article last night, right?
Yes.
Okay. Amy, do you want to step through these numbers briefly?
Yep, so as a whole, if you remember from Article 4 at annual town meeting, our slide had $93,810 that was in salary reserve for the 4 unions that we were discussing. So this is the shifting of that, as well as additional monies for non-union personnel, cost of living, and the additional wages that were needed for the vacant positions that we were in the process of hiring at that time.
Okay. So,
And this would also leave $52,700 left in salary reserve.
so we're taking 130,000 out of salary reserve, and then all these line items for roughly, where it says CBA, that's roughly adding up to the 93,000. And then the other ones are adding up to that 52, roughly, right?
Yes. Yep, so The CBA ones add up exactly to $93,810.
Okay.
And so everything nets to zero with the exception of the regional voc tech school. And that was we didn't have the full assessment at the time of annual town meeting, so we just put an estimate. And the 31,603 is the additional needed for the actual assessment.
And is there is there an updated warrant has the finance committee favorable action?
Yes, that's on the draft that I have in front of me, but.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's just, that's fine.
Yes.
Can you just tell me where the line item is for the assessment on the vocational school?
On page 8, about 2/3 of the way down.
It's actually
references line item 60.
Page 2, use page 2 of the warrant.
Yep.
It's right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Total regional VOTEC.
What was it?
It's adding 31,603.
31,603, yeah.
And then we have the enterprise funds, which we talked about when we did the water and sewer rate setting. That's just a shift because of the assessments were lower than expected, right?
Yes, and those are the exact numbers from Patrick's presentation.
Okay.
I would make a motion to recommend favorable action on Article 1.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, aye. Okay. Okay, sorry, I'm just looking at the language here. All right, Article 2.
So these are going to be updated to reflect that Finance Committee said yes, Select Board.
Yeah, I'm updating in real time.
Okay, beautiful.
Are you actually printing tonight?
Yes, we're printing about 200 of them tonight, and then we'll print the remaining 150 in the morning. That way the clerk's office has a head start on stuffing envelopes.
Okay. Okay. Article 2 is transfer of free cash and/or stabilization for adjustment of tax rates, so that we just talked about this. There is no sum of money. We don't have an amount, so I think we'll be reporting on this at town meeting. Anyone have any questions about this article generally? Okay, so, and again, Amy, I'll just keep asking just because this is our chance, and I don't, I want to make sure we don't need to put any stickers in the warrant. This Finance Committee's reporting at town meeting as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, and that, you have that updated in your copy?
Yep, so I have both the Select Board and Finance Committee will report on this article at town meeting.
Okay. Article 3 is approval of, approved transfer of free cash collective bargaining agreement. We don't have anything on that tonight. So that, to be determined, so that is also going to be a report at town meeting.
Yep.
Any comments, questions on that one from anyone? Article 4 is establish a compensated absences reserve fund.
The Finance Committee did not vote on this last night. They deferred to report at town meeting. They're waiting to see the free cash certification so that they can weigh all the free cash articles together.
Okay.
I suggest we do the same.
That makes sense.
Yep. Article 5 is capital.
Finance Committee did recommend this as printed in your warrant.
Okay. Questions, comments on this article?
I would recommend favorable action on the 4 projects and the proposed funding sources set forth in Article 5.
Second.
Further discussion?
So I have some comments on Article 5. Under the rehabilitation of Abbott Park, I don't want to lose money, a $100,000 grant. However, it is troubling when I'm 90% sure in our financial policy, we're supposed to be presenting grants prior to even looking for funding, just so that everybody's on the same page. But I'll double check that, because I just remember that was in the draft. Repairs to the town garage, number 2. You know, this is $100,000 that taxpayers have to pay for, and I still don't understand what needs to be done at the garage. I don't think it was very clear. The problem that happened at the garage also happened with the town and a private club, and I had asked last time if the private club's insurance could kick in to try to abate this cost to the town. So I do have a problem with that. Lead service investigation, I don't have a problem with that. The recreation sailboats and SUP, the boards, I think that this should be investigated to be able to come out of the recreation revolving account, or even half of it to come out of the recreation revolving account, and not to have to be bonded and be a general, a general tax on people, again, because this is a recreational program, and I think the actual recreational program should take care of the equipment.
Mary Ellen, if I can just give you more info on the town hall garage, the 100,000 is for the right side of the garage that was not impacted by the Bobcat collapse.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not covered by any insurance, and this is a preventative repair.
Okay.
So it's to keep the right side from collapsing like the left side did, but because it did not collapse, it's not eligible for any insurance.
And so the 100,000, is it going to be filled in, or is it, what's the actual work that's going to be done?
It's to put the structural beams in to keep the floor from collapsing.
Okay.
And to Mary Ellen's point, the left side is being paid for from the town insurance, and the town, if there's a claim to be made against someone else, they will pursue that and subrogate that claim, correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
The town is not going to go after the yacht club.
No, the insurers do.
That's
just
right.
the way it works. Understood.
Right, and the recreational sailboats, my understanding is $140,000 sitting in the recreation revolving account, and
We have so many programs and so many needs with recreation, and for me to go and tap into those funds without really thinking about how that might impact all of the other things that we should or could be doing for recreation, I think is penny wise and pound foolish. I do think it is helpful for a town at large to invest in recreation, and this is, I think, a modest investment in a sailboat program that has been part of the DNA for Swampscott for, before everybody's memory. And I think it would be well and good for all of the citizens of Swampscott to, celebrate these programs and make investments in these programs. And let the rec revolving be a fund that really, truly does programmatically support all of the needs that we have as a busy community.
the purpose of setting up the recreation revolving account, which I was involved in, was so that the recreation programs would subsidize recreation.
Absolutely.
That the town residents weren't subsidizing unless it was something that the entire town benefited from. That was the purpose of it. So that's why I'm still sticking with the purpose of it, and it was supposed to fund recreational events. That's why we made a recreation revolving account. I think there is enough money in the budget to pick up some of this bill, and I also think that that this should be something that should be looked at constantly, so that this part of the recreation program is self-funding.
Mary Ellen, you're correct that this can and potentially should be coming out of the revolving fund. The Cinder brought up the same point at the Finance Committee meeting on Monday. The issue that we have is the spending limit that was just increased for the rec revolving the annual spending limit, was increased due to budgeted projected expenses. So if we put this 40,000 in that rec revolving, they would not be able to do the programming that they already have planned out for the year because they'd reached their spending limit. And Ms. McNerney brought up that we could increase the spending limit, which is also a possibility, but that would have to be a separate warrant article to allow that.
Right. Okay.
Personally, I don't think the town invests enough in recreation, so I think
Hands down.
I think the $40,641 request should be approved. This should be bonded. We should be investing more than $40,000 for these programs, especially as we're coming out of a pandemic, especially as we want to do more. And I think the recreation department and the recreation director have been asked to do more with less for so long. I think to tap into the rec revolving account for a sailboat program as well as stand-up paddleboarding is just I just wouldn't support. I wouldn't support tapping into that account. So I think we need to do more, Sean, and
I agree.
the rest of our board members. And I think we want to evaluate other opportunities for.
There's a list of rec programs that we still want to see, and I agree with you. Like this, we desperately need those rec revolving funds to fund programs, and we are thinking more creatively about how to generate more funds for recreation.
Yeah, and also keep them affordable for all the residents of Swampscott utilizing these programs.
No cost, low cost.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's, I saw the Finance Committee conversation about this same topic. I think it's worth discussing for future town meetings, but, I think certainly for tonight, we don't want to be jeopardizing either this program or any other recreational programs, and it's a nominal amount of money and a much-needed investment into the sailing program and stand-up paddleboard. So I think that, for tonight, for this town meeting, we should recommend favorable action as the Finance Committee did. So I think...
So can I come at it a different way? Sure. I think Mary Ellen makes some good points. And so last night, a longtime FinCom member who was not supportive of raising the revolving account historically said that she was in favor of it. And Mary Ellen, you've actually voted against recommending increasing the revolving account when you were on FinCom. But if you're now okay with that, I want to propose putting a warrant article in tonight that can go to the special town meeting in December that will lift I believe Cinder said $500,000. Let's increase the revolving account warrant article to $500,000, which means if they raise $500,000, they can spend $500,000. That will actually give you the room for the $40,000 of the boats. But I know previously you weren't in favor of raising that cap. But if you are now, which is awesome, and I really am glad I think I'm hearing you are, let's do it, because we can actually add the warrant article tonight.
Yes, so you have an amazing memory to remember all of my votes on Finance Committee. I applaud you for that. Yes, in the past, I have not voted to support it because there was no information brought forward whatsoever on what type of programs there were going to be, what the spending was going to be. However, now that you have a full-time recreation director in there and there's a part-time recreation person in there, I don't have any problems with increasing the bottom line up to $500,000, which means then you can take this $40,000 out of that 140.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I'll make that trade in a second, just so you know. If we now can have a revolving account of $500,000, I think that's fantastic. I think for some reason for a long time here there was a strong reticence. I think we did know how the money was being spent because every year you can look and see what the rec. There's nobody more visible than what the rec department does. I mean, there's nothing more visible in our town, right? I mean, conversely, how much money do we spend maintaining docks and piers? Anybody know that answer? But yet, if you actually look who uses dock and piers, it's 90%, I'm sure, if not more, people who have private memberships to clubs or pay for a mooring, right? And that is a very, 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 very small percent of our town. But yet, we pick up 100% of the expense, right? And so I think the rec department actually should be applauded because they are the most visible. Like, you probably could account to the penny for it because it's so visible. So,
But we can
so
simply-
can we put a warrant, I mean, we don't have it written here, we have to.
In the annual town meeting, we have a warrant article that, establishes the amount of funds. We can just cut and paste that into this warrant and approve it at $500,000. Amy, are you able to just grab that from the annual town meeting warrant? And
I can do that right now if the board votes to do so.
Yeah, can you just do me a favor? Can you pull it up maybe so that we can see it, since we have to close the warrant?
Yep, I'm pulling it up right now.
Are others open to this? I mean, I've said it. No one, you guys open to doing this warrant article? I mean, we can do it now. If you don't want to because it's too quick, Neil, I get that. It is actually something, it does require a different warrant article, but the warrant's open. It's our warrant. We can add it.
Thoughts from anyone else?
I'm open to increasing the limit to $500,000, but I'm not open to utilizing the $40,641 from rec revolving.
Well, that's fine. We can make a recommendation on both, and then both articles can be there, and town meeting at least then has the choice, and the arguments can be made to say, take it out of this because we're doing the other.
Sure.
I think I'm a little bit more agnostic than you are on that last part, but I think there's a lot of good points being made.
Katie?
I mean, I think there's an opportunity to be had for the rec department here, and we should utilize it if we're able to, so.
I'm confident if the rec director was here right now, she would be
Ecstatic?
saying, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, because it's an arbitrary cap for them to say, we can't do any more programming than $250,000 of revenue. I mean, that's just, it's arbitrary.
this is about mental health. It's about.
They're
children.
currently at
It's about-
300,000 for the spending limit, by the way.
Or hypothetically, I can say 300,000.
So, Amy, are you able to find that now? Do you want me to come back to that and we can move on and we'll come back to this article in a minute once you find that language?
Yep, I'm just opening it right now, but if you want to continue.
Or we want-
So on Article 5, I made a motion for favorable action, and I think it was seconded.
It was.
Okay.
It was.
So, all those in favor of favorable action on Article 5?
Aye.
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 Aye. But I do want to see this 40,000 taken out.
Okay. Article 6, appropriation for new elementary school. We just went over all the details on that.
Yeah, but I would like the language to be changed. Amy, can we change it to include, and Patrick, do you have the language to specify the 2.9 whatever million and make it clear that it would be increasing our exempt authorization? Did you guys?
I have the language that bond council gave us, and I did plug in a sum of $2,900,983.
So can you read it? Because our version doesn't have that.
Yep. So I have, hold on. Sorry, it says Patrick sent it to, and it's bogging. Thank you. Sorry, Patrick, you were slowing down my warrant. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, and/or transfer from available funds a sum of $2,900,983 to be expended under the direction of the school building committee for the design, construction, and equipping of a new elementary school and costs incidental or related thereto, commonly referred to as the new elementary school, located at 10 Whitman Road, Swampscott, Massachusetts, including the acquisition of easements. Therefore, the project, which school facility shall have anticipated useful life as an education facility for the instruction of school children of at least 50 years, and for which the town may be eligible for a school construction grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, MSBA. The MSBA's grant program is a non-entitlement discretionary program based on need as determined by the MSBA, and any project costs the town incurs in excess of any grant approved by and received from the MSBA shall be the sole responsibility of the town. Any grant that the town may receive from the MSBA for the project shall not exceed the lesser of 1/48 9/10% of eligible approved project costs and determined by the MSBA, or 2, the total maximum grant amount determined by the MSBA, and to meet said appropriation to authorize the treasurer with the approval of the select board to borrow all or a portion of said sum under the provisions of GL Chapter 44, Section 7, and/or any other enabling authority to issue bonds or notes of the town, therefore, or take any action relative thereto. I don't think I breathed that whole thing, so I hope you guys heard it.
So to see if the town will, Amy, does that give, but that language came from bond counsel, and maybe Patrick, this is where you want to chime in, but that language allows us to to file the request with DOR. That would then allow this to, with town meeting approval and select board approval, increase.
Yes, so there's nothing specific in this language to a debt exclusion.
Yep.
And that's because we already have one approved for the original project appropriation. The process that the select board can choose to pursue is an application to DOR stating that these are costs, based on an OPM report we'd have to get.
Yep.
That these are just costs related to, escalation in the project, or the construction contract came in, higher than anticipated. And there's no changes to the project scope, which I think fits exactly our situation. So that's an application process, and I think, our situation fits right into that. However, it's not guaranteed. It's an application, and the director of accounts would have to approve that this would be counted towards our debt exclusion.
Does that application only go after we approved it by town meeting, or can we file that application right now in anticipation of town meeting approval?
It can be filed ahead of time if you have the specific amount specified, which we do.
Yep.
And there are certain, there's a report we'd need to get from the OPM, and the select board would have to take a vote in a public session before we could file it.
All right, so can we go ahead and prepare that application, if it's okay with you all, prepare that application, the OPM, you can reach out to the school building committee, and they're prepared to have the OPM give you whatever you need to document and certify the costs.
Max Casper can facilitate that for you, Patrick.
So if we're not using any language saying excluded debt, that's not going to hurt us to file that application.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah, the only, if you wanted it to make this vote contingent on another, like a referendum vote, we'd have a special election and everything again. That would be the only language we could add in here, but we don't need it for the other process.
So, Amy, can you just say the amount one more time? I just want to make sure that.
I have $2,900,983. So 2,900,983.
I thought that it's actually 2,909,983.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
So say it back to me one more time.
I now have 2,909,983.
Thank you.
Okay. We tried to catch it so many times. I was like texting with Patrick and Diane, being like, "Did you catch them all?"
So I would make a motion to approve Article 6 as narrated with the correct number by the town finance director.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I do have the language up for the revolving fund if you want to loop
Okay.
back to that one.
And do we think we're inserting this at the end?
It would be inserted with the financial
Okay,
articles.
right. So,
It's up to you where you would like it to be. So if you can see your screen, this is directly from the annual. So the only difference would be where it says 300,000, it would say 500,000.
and then it would say was 300,000.
Yep.
So I think it may make sense to make this Article 5. Then Article 5 would become Article 6.
I agree.
Um,
I would move a new Article 5 as printed on the screen, but changing where it says fiscal year spending limit, change 300,000 to 500,000, and then the parenthetical afterwards, asterisk was 275, will now say was 300, and then I would just have it sponsored by the select board.
Yep.
Second.
Okay. Any other further discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So Amy, you're changing all these article numbers now, right?
Yep.
So, Article 7, acceptance of public way, Supreme Court. I don't know, Sean, do we know, didn't the planning board meet on this? I don't know what they,
They have, I don't have an update. I know that, they've scheduled to approve it.
Yeah, I think we can't do anything until we know that.
okay. Amy, it may make sense to just reach out to Marzi to find out if they've made any sort of recommendation. If not, do you have language in there now that says the planning board will report?
Right now, I just have the planning board ...
Okay, so I think you should change it to the planning board will report on this article.
Okay.
And then I think the select board will report on this as well, but I think it's worth checking in with Marzi. Maybe if she's watching, because if the planning board did recommend favorable action, then we should put that in the warrant.
Okay.
All right, so acceptance of donated land, Park Square. Again, I don't know what the planning board is, so I just want to make sure we, of course, change these ... to will report.
Yep.
Does everyone feel similarly that we just shouldn't recommend favorable action until the planning board does?
I just got a text from Mozzie. They made a favorable vote on Supreme Court.
Okay.
I'd move.
Thank you, Diane.
I would move to recommend favorable action on currently printed article number 7, acceptance of public way.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do you want to ask Marzi about the other ones too while we're here? So acceptance of donated land, Park Square. Any questions about this from anyone generally?
Why does the planning board need to report on the acceptance of a gift?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know of any
I don't think
statutory
so, yeah.
requirement that they need to. I think that's probably a unnecessary line. It's a gift. It just happens to be land. It's the gift.
So should we remove the planning board altogether and just have it say the select
Well,
board?
I don't know if.
You want me to ask her? I can call her.
No, it's the select board. The select board is the governing body of the.
So it should say sponsored by the select board.
And just for clarity's sake, this is the land adjacent to the Haas parcel that we
just closed on. Correct.
At our last meeting.
Correct.
Yeah, and this map, Amy, I know the one that we have, the article references are incorrect.
Yep, so I had Pete update that, and I'm gonna have him update it again with the new article numbers.
Right. Okay.
How big is that parcel?
But if you're looking at your map,
It's like 10,000 square feet.
It's the red one, right?
Right.
Is Park
Yes.
Square?
The red
it
one.
goes red and then blue.
Right.
Oh. This is it.
This is the one.
This is the one.
So,
This is the gift.
Yeah. Oh, got it. This, it's not connected right
so Peter, sorry, you think it should say the select board sponsor, this is,
Yes, I do.
and recommends favorable action, or
I
just?
do.
Okay.
now. Second.
Sorry, I'm losing track. Did we have a motion?
Yes,
That I
and she
do.
just seconded it.
I took that I do to mean a motion for which I seconded.
Yeah, the current Article 8, acceptance of donated land, Park Square, with a change to the select board sponsors this article and recommends favorable action.
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks.
We're getting there.
Almost there. All right. So current Article 9, acquisition of land off Cushing Avenue. So there's just,
Is that Article 10 now?
it
Yes.
would be Article 10 now, but it starts the language of the article
Yeah,
and the title.
I fixed that.
You fixed that, okay. So this is for correcting the acquisition article from our town meeting when we acquired the giant green space, or were authorized to acquire the giant green space, and their very thin blue sliver was left out in terms of the lots. So this is to correct that authorization. So again, I think maybe it's the select board sponsors this article and recommends favorable action.
Correct.
Do we have,
So moved.
Second.
wait, I have a question.
Okay?
Do we know, is the planning board opining on this?
No.
I don't think that's
They're not.
again, I
Okay.
think someone just kept on
So-
cutting and pasting.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah. So.
We just put placeholders for zoning articles and
So I can't,
sometimes the language carries.
I can't remember, FinCom didn't want to report on this, right? Because there's no new appropriation. The appropriation already happened.
Correct.
That's right.
Okay, all right, just want to make sure.
Sorry.
And town council's reviewed this.
Yes.
Everyone has,
Yeah, so can I just?
Double checked.
Can I just ask that these, we're not really focusing on the comments. And I get it, we're kind of moving fast here, but the comments matter, especially this one here, because I think it needs context, right? And so I think the comment frankly should be a little bit more than seeks to authorize a, I think it should say what we just talked about, right? At the annual town meeting, warrant article, whatever it was, authorized, the board, the town to acquire, take, et cetera, these 40 whatever lots. And lot 7 dash whatever, lot 7-2 was inadvertently omitted from that list. And then see Appendix A, right?
right.
Because there's really no reference to Appendix A here. And same with, in Article 8, the donated land, I think you gotta say see red parcel in Appendix A. I just think we have to help town meeting navigate the warrant.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And also on the Park Square one, in the comment mentioning that it's a donated land, because that's not
No,
clear.
so, so acquire property. So, so Amy, are you with us?
Yep.
So in the comment for number 8, the current number 8, where it says the article seeks authorization to acquire property located, maybe just add a sentence saying this property will be acquired by donation,
At the end.
period, right?
And then see Appendix A.
Yeah, and see Appendix A or whatever you need to do.
Do you want to eliminate that entire, this article seeks, and just put this property will be acquired through donation?
Yeah, you can keep what's there now.
Okay.
The second sentence, this property will be acquired by donation. See appendix.
See red parcel in Appendix A.
Yep. Make sure you update Appendix A, because the warrant article numbers are going to change
Yep.
on that as well. All right.
And then the Cushing Ave one, the current Article 9, which is now Article 10, is a little bit trickier for the comment.
At the Springtown meeting.
At the Springtown meeting, town meeting voted pursuant to Article blank to acquire certain parcels of land, to allow the town to acquire certain parcels of land, period, right? Lot 7-2 was inadvertently omitted from that list. This warrant article corrects that error. And then we can speak to it, but at least it lets them know.
Right.
Was that a scribe error?
We can call it Scrivener error. We can call it a Scrivener error.
Do you want to read that back, Amy, if you got
Do you
that?
want to reference the appendix?
This article
Yeah, the end.
corrects a scrivener's error that omitted.
Yeah, you don't sound like Amy at all. It's not even a believable attempt, impersonation. Yes, Amy, go ahead.
So
Well,
what do
now
you,
I can't do a Sean voice.
yeah.
I have at the annual town meeting voted in Article X to acquire Lot 2 and lots 213 to 248, and 250 to 255 were omitted by error. This does not change the appropriation that was done in vote X. The select board will, please see the blue parcel in Appendix A.
No, so we need to go back. The only parcel that we're acquiring on this is map 7, lot 2. The other ones that are referenced in the
Okay.
warrant article are actually, that's just quoting what a plan. So don't use that.
Okay.
So don't recite those other lots.
All right, so to acquire lot 2,
Lot
map 7, lot 2.
Yeah, tax map, assessor's tax map 7, comma, lot 2. Which due to a Scrivener's error was omitted from the spring town meeting warrant. See Appendix A, blue parcel.
Can you read that one more time for us, Amy, before?
Yep, at the annual town meeting voted in Article X to acquire assessor's tax map 7, comma, lot 2, which due to a Scrivener's error was omitted from the town meeting warrant.
Now,
Please see the blue parcel in Appendix A.
sorry, we gotta go back to your first sentence. At the 2022 annual town meeting pursuant, whatever, article blank, town meeting voted to acquire several tax parcels.
Yeah.
Don't,
Why don't you say as depicted as open space?
because unfortunately,
Oh, because that's the whole
it's
thing.
actually-
All right, yeah.
tax lot 7, parcel 2, due to a Scrivener's error, parcel 7, whatever, map 7, lot 2 was inadvertently omitted. This warrant article corrects that, or whatever we said.
Let's try it one more time, Amy, when you're ready.
In Sean's voice.
All right, at the 2022 annual town meeting voted in Article X to acquire assessor's tax map 7, lot 2, which due to a Scrivener's error was inadvertently.
Stop, nope. It voted to acquire several
parcels.
Several, not 7. Several parcels, period. Due to a Scrivener's error, assessor's map 7, parcel 6, or lot 6 was omitted.
Lot 2.
Lot 2. I don't know why I'm saying
Why are
6.
you making this worse than it has to be?
I'm like 6. What's lot 6?
All right, motion to adjourn. Sorry, Amy.
All right.
All right, hold on.
We're doing this as painfully as possible to teach you all a lesson.
That's right.
We're never doing this again.
Where's the last minute?
We say that.
I feel like the conversation has happened once before.
I think it does help, though.
It does. I actually, having these notes do help. I will draft the comments going forward.
You ready, Amy?
Thank you.
All right, Amy, you,
Article number 1.
more time.
Sorry, Peter. It
No,
was-
I'm still cutting and pasting
what do
because
you-
Peter moved the sentences around.
it was that 6.
That was about a little mini stroke.
It's from drinking that stuff.
Patrick is correcting me that it is at the special town meeting, not the annual town meeting. Thank you, Patrick.
Oh, it's so amazing.
Yes, you're right. It was
Good
a
job,
special town
Patrick.
meeting.
I'm like, you can just do whatever. I'm good. Everything. Doesn't matter.
We actually had multiple special town meetings.
At the first
Yeah.
special time.
Was it the first?
We had it was almost like a bifurcated town meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try this again. At the 2022 special town meeting, Article 1, town meeting voted to acquire several parcels, period. Due to a scrivener's error, Assessor's Tax Map 7, Lot 2 was inadvertently omitted. This article corrects that error. Please see the blue parcel in Appendix A.
It's perfect, except in your first sentence, it's not special town meeting, it's annual town meeting.
Oh, it's
Wasn't it?
No, I think it was.
So I know it was special, you're right, it was special. Never mind. Hey, Patrick is right, don't listen to me.
I usually go with Patrick being right.
Whoa.
That's kind of interesting.
Especially if it's against Peter.
Wow.
That's more interesting.
Yeah.
So does that language work?
That works.
Yep.
Okay.
And we did recommend favorable action?
We did.
Yes.
Okay.
Did we vote?
Well, I know we moved it and
Oh, we
seconded
moved it
it.
and seconded it.
Okay.
We voted it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wow.
Can I move that we now close the town meeting warrant?
Second.
There's a second from Katie.
Yes, please.
Any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I also need a vote from the board to affix your electronic signatures.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. That's the town meeting warrant. Good job. Thanks, Amy and Patrick and everyone, and Sean. More to come on that. Next is the consent agenda. We have on our consent agenda meeting minutes from November 2nd and also a request from Veterans Crossing for an extension of their hours on Thanksgiving. They want to open early, I believe.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion on the consent agenda? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Town administrators report.
All right, we are continue our efforts to work with Aggregate Industries. We will be back in January to have another discussion about the permit. There's a significant amount of work that is underway with efforts to address some of the standards in the permit. I will keep the board apprised of some of those activities. This past week, I had a staff meeting at the senior center. I want to thank the staff at the senior center for all the work that they do, but we had a wonderful meal. Certainly, I want to encourage Swampscott seniors to head down to the senior center. We know that we have less than 20% of Swampscott seniors that have ever been in that building. And if you're a senior, head down and have lunch and meet some folks and really take advantage of some of the programs that we have. A lot of activities and a lot of resources. We have snow angels set to help our seniors with snow, so you can really get on a list. And we have hardship applications at Town Hall and at the DPW and on our website if you are unable to shovel your sidewalk. We have mandatory snow removal on our sidewalks in Swampscott, so please prepare for a busy winter. If you have an oral history that you'd like to share for the future, please head down and see our library director, Jonathan Nichols. We want our veterans and our families in Swampscott to share their history. It will be good for posterity. So take advantage of this fun activity and record your history. We've had a number of new hires. I want to welcome our new library employee, Bernadette Berman, as a reference librarian. And we have 3 new DPW employees, Brian Martin, Kevin McDonald, and Ryan Squires. Really appreciate the work that our town clerk and staff in our town clerk's election office pulled off for our November elections. We had 2,600 people vote by mail. We had 781 visited town hall and 3,511 voted in person out of 11,926 registered voters. 58% of the Swampscott residents voted. Obviously, still too low, but not a bad turnout given the election. Recreation has been busy. We have our indoor farmers market this weekend, November 20th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the high school. Turkey hunt is also on November 20th and leaves Linscott Park at 10 a.m. We're collecting gently used costumes through November 23rd, and donors will receive a coupon if you donate your costume. We're also having a holiday wreath raffle on November 29th through December 1st. One-of-a-kind wreaths will be raffled off on December 10th. We will also have Santa at the outdoor holiday fair and parade and tree lighting. Let's see, just as a reminder, mattresses and box springs can no longer be thrown out in the state of Massachusetts. They have to be recycled, so you just can't leave them on the curb. Our Solid Waste Committee has a Take Out the Trash survey that's up on our website. Lastly, I want to thank all those that participated in Captain Jennifer Harris's memorial commemoration of life. Her birthday celebration was on Sunday, November 6th, and it really is a heartwarming connection for somebody that really was so loved by this town. Really thought it was wonderful to hear the story of how she learned to sail in Swampscott, as many of our young children do. And she learned courage by being sent off as a 10 or 11-year-old child off the coast of Nahant. And I kind of think about how many kids in Swampscott really learn that type of wonderful, sense of independence and courage by participating in those programs. Wonderful Memorial Day. I think Mike Sweeney, our veterans agent, and his wife Sarah really go way out of their way. They're planning a number of events over the next few weeks, along with a program for Gold Star U.S. Army Specialist Jared Raymond. We have a dedication on Sunday, December 4th at the corner of Essex Street for anybody that is interested in commemorating a Swampscott resident who paid the ultimate price for our freedoms.
You wouldn't happen to know what time that's going to be, would you?
I will get that to you. I believe it's going to be sometime in the morning, 10 or 11, but I'll make sure we get an update out.
Sean, do we have an update on the standard operating procedure for reporting complaints? Because we had talked last week. And
We did. I've asked staff to look into the C-Click Fix module, see if we can update that, and also look at a number of other products. I have had a conversation with staff about, the C-Click Fix, interface, and staff generally feel as though that's a good one-stop shopping, for these complaints. I do know that there are residents that have complained when they've gone and made a complaint at the fire department that they have been referred to the Salem Fire Department if the blast doesn't occur in Swampscott. That, to me, is not good enough, and we need to do better. When people come in and complain, we need to help them document that in Swampscott, and we'll I will come back with the board over the next 2 weeks with an update that will help improve the type of complaint system that we currently have.
Yeah, that's fine. And just for clarity's sake, I just want to make sure that we have a standard operating procedure so we know what happens, if there's a blast in Swampscott, the call comes into the fire department, that information is being recorded, whether it's the resident or whether it's the person at the desk answering the phone, that complaint's being registered, recorded, so we have this data. I mean, there've been years of complaints, and we don't really have any of that information, and that's something that residents have been coming to me about for a number of years. So I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, rowing in the same direction, and that the fire department and town staff and we can certainly get the, get the word out.
Got to be one system where everybody goes to when they have a complaint
Yes.
about blasting.
Yes.
Just so,
We can't have 4 or 5 different, it can't be Facebook, can't be, the fire department in Swampscott or in Salem, or, it's got to be one place, and we got to reinforce that. I do think that we've got to do a better job just getting that out, that this is where, you file a complaint.
so right now, right now, it appears that there's a lack of clarity on exactly what a person is supposed to do. So within the next 2 weeks, we'll have something that's really clear. Can we also have some type of a plan on how that's going to get communicated, possibly a mailer to everyone who lives in that area? Or, or just a plan,
Sure.
how it's going to be communicated, whether Facebook, on the web, at these meetings?
Robocall.
Yeah. That'd be great.
Any other questions for Sean on his report? All right, select board time. Anyone?
I have just a little update. The Disability Commission had their first meeting this week, and it's the first meeting in years, and they're going to start working on a number of issues and put together an agenda as far as what they want to accomplish during the year. Actually, at their first meeting, one of the members brought in some information to find out whether or not the police department and the fire department have visuals that can help if they have someone who's hearing impaired. And I did stopped at the police department just to show this to them, and they didn't have anything. So it was interesting on some of the topics that they brought up just at their first meeting. The Swampscott for All Ages and the Council on Aging, which kind of overlap, they're working on the website, and they're working on educational videos to discuss what affordable housing really is. So they're going to put that together, and they're also working on grants. And that is my update on committees.
Anyone else? I just quickly want to congratulate the 7th grade B Big Blue football team for winning their Super Bowl against Marblehead this past weekend and completing an undefeated season. So congratulations to them and the coaches and the cheer squad and everybody involved. So very exciting for them. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Night, everybody.
Good night.